Someone once said about his father. My father, whenever he entered my room and found the light on while I wasn't there, would say, "Why don't you turn it off? Why all this waste of electricity?" If he entered the bathroom and found the faucet dripping, he would shout, "Why didn't you close it tightly? Why all this waste of water?" He was always criticizing me and accusing me of being careless. He would reprimand me for every small and big mistake, even while he was bedridden. Until one day, I found a job opportunity the day I had been waiting for so long. It was the day of my first job interview for a prestigious position at a major company. If I got accepted, I would leave this house for good and finally be free from my father and his constant scolding. I woke up early, dressed in my best clothes, put on some perfume, and was about to leave when I felt a hand patting me on the shoulder at the door. I turned around and found my father smiling despite the fatigue showing clearly on his face. He handed me some money and said, "I want you to be positive, confident, and never hesitate in your answers." I reluctantly accepted his advice, forcing a smile while sighing inwardly. Even at this moment, he couldn't stop advising me, seemingly trying to ruin my mood on one of the happiest days of my life. I left the house quickly, hailed a taxi, and headed to the company. As soon as I arrived and entered the company gate, I was shocked. There were no guards at the door and no receptionist, just guiding signs leading to the interview room. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed the door handle was loose and could easily break if someone bumped into it. I immediately remembered my father's advice about being positive, so I fixed the handle. Following the signs, I passed through the company's garden and found the pathways flooded with water overflowing from a filled fountain. Remembering how my father used to reprimand me for wasting water, I adjusted the hose to prevent further overflow. Inside the building, while climbing the stairs, I noticed all the lights were on despite it being broad daylight. Without thinking, I turned them off, hearing my father's voice in my head, reminding me not to waste electricity. Eventually, I reached the interview floor and found many candidates waiting. I registered my name and sat down, observing the other candidates, most of them elegantly dressed and boasting about the degrees from prestigious universities. I felt inferior compared to their appearance and qualifications. I also noticed that each candidate who entered the interview came out within a minute. I thought to myself, if these well-dressed, highly qualified people were rejected, what chance did I have? I decided to leave before being humiliated. As I stood to leave, the receptionist called my name. Reluctantly, I said to myself, "There's no escape now, I'll go in, and whatever happens, happens." I entered the interview room and found myself in front of 3 interviewers. They looked at me, smiled warmly, and one of them said, "When would you like to start your job?" I was stunned, thinking it was a trick question. Then I remembered my father's advice to stay confident, so I replied firmly, "After I pass the interview successfully, God willing." Another interviewer said, "You've already passed the test." Confused, I said, "But no one asked me any questions." The third interviewer explained, "We believe that interviews alone aren't enough to assess a person's abilities. So we designed a series of practical tests to evaluate each candidate's behavior and level of positivity. You were the only one who took the initiative to fix everything we deliberately left faulty." He added, "We recorded everything through surveillance cameras installed throughout the company." At that moment, all the faces around me faded away, and I only saw my father's face. That stern man, who appeared harsh but was full of love, kindness, and care deep down. I felt an overwhelming desire to rush back home, fall at his feet, and kiss his hands and forehead. When I arrived at our house, I saw relatives and neighbors gathered, looking at me with sorrowful eyes. I understood everything at that moment. I was too late, I had missed my chance. I longed to hear his voice, even his loud scolding that once annoyed me. Why hadn't I seen my father for who he truly was before? How could I have been blind to his love, his kindness, and his selfless care? Father, your departure is bitter. You were the one who treated us with kindness, but we failed to return it as we should have. You left, taking with you my source of wisdom, strength, and support. But my father is not truly gone. He lives on in my prayers, my charity, my acts of worship, and every good deed I do, asking God to forgive him and grant him mercy. My father will always be alive within me until I meet him again in eternal paradise. If you've reached this point, don't leave before praying for your parents. O Allah, have mercy on my parents as they raised me when I was young, and grant them the highest place in paradise.